It was cold that March morning in Zagreb. The sun was low, a thin layer of snow still clinging to the pavements. Željko squeezed around the first table in front of Cafe Funda and dropped his tall frame into his chair. A cigarette, a familiar waiter, the usual coffee. Small rituals that made the world feel safe. He tilted his head toward the pale sun and closed his eyes. For a moment, there was nothing but warmth through his eyelids and the quiet clatter of cups on metal tables. His phone buzzed once. He ignored it. A text could wait. The second buzz came just as the coffee arrived. Only then did he reach for the phone, with the same reluctance as a man who already knows this is the moment when life changes course. Later, in his daughter's kitchen, the air smelled of spinach, cold beer, and an old dog's curiosity. Lorca's tail thumped on the floor as Željko arrived with a shopping bag full of vegetables for iron, as he put it.
Quit giving her snacks, Dad. She's a dog. She doesn't know better, but you do.
They walked Lorca to the park behind the school Nella once attended. When the leash came off, the dog raced ahead, while father and daughter claimed a worn bench that had overheard decades of neighborhood gossip.
So, the woman I met yesterday, she wants me to look into her grandfather's death, 1991, Tachevo, actually next door in Ogorli.
And the case? It was never investigated?
He took a deep breath, watching Lorca circle back to them.
It was, and it wasn't, officially closed. For it to reopen, something new has to appear. She doesn't have anything. She just has questions.
He paused, then added almost shyly,
"Would you help me research it?"
Nella stopped scratching the dog's ears.
Easy for you to say. Your research cost me my job last time, remember?
There was a silence, filled only by Lorca's snuffling and the distant sounds of children in the schoolyard.
It does sound interesting, but didn't you say you were finally going to rest after retirement?
A few weeks later, in a parish garden outside the city, they sat under a gazebo, a retired lawyer and a priest who had seen too much. On the table between them stood 2 empty wine glasses and 2 half-full glasses of elderflower juice.
So, to sum up, you weren't in Tachevo then. You don't know who exactly carried out the massacre. You couldn't testify against anyone. But surely, Father, even without proof, you must have had some suspicions.
The priest's face darkened.
My feeling is that what they said about some of those men is probably true. But I can't swear to what I didn't see. I follow these cases, you know. What stands out is how few people have been convicted. There were locals who turned on their neighbors even before the killings. I can name several. But what about all the others?
He scratched behind his ear, then spoke more quietly.
We should humbly ask ourselves what we would do in their place. I'm not excusing anyone. What they did is the same as torture. But normal people suddenly behaving in ways we don't recognize. Mob spirit, fear, hatred.
I couldn't agree more, and they need to be punished, including the ones who killed that old man. That's why I'm here. Sometimes the smallest detail is enough to start an avalanche.
Years earlier, when Nella was still a child and the war felt like a storm that would never end, she had once suggested a solution, in all seriousness.
One day, they should be allowed to win. The next day, we should win, and so on, until everyone got tired and the war stopped.
Her father had laughed then, but the memory stayed with him. Now, as he chased ghosts through old files and cold villages, that childish idea, victory for everyone and an end to killing, felt less naive and more like the only kind of justice the world had never tried.